good turnout. Some of the information, some of the notes I wanted to make a point to give, as if you haven't figured it out, or in case you're wondering, well, from where on from now, all the food events will take place here in the Student Union cafeteria. And of course, you're used to the Faculty Staff Association luncheon today. Also, tomorrow morning will be a continental breakfast just like this one, and we'll precede the general session. And then tomorrow, you probably heard bits and pieces about it, but we've worked with George Babb and his staff, and there was a request came to the committee that said, you know what we'd really like to have? We'd like to have some time where we can just sit around and visit with people in campus that we never get to see anymore. And so we've arranged with George and his staff that there's going to be a Mexican fiesta. It will be held here. We've managed to get it at a discount cost. And I can assure you that nowhere in this area will you be able to find a Mexican fiesta at lunch for $2.50. And so between the quantity and the quality of food and the opportunity to visit with people around campus without the constraints of students running in and some other meetings coming very quickly, that is tomorrow. One comment, there was a session that has been planned that's called True Colors, and I think we've had several sessions on campus during the past year. Mitzi Hale is the presenter, and the individuals that have participated in this workshop will come out and they'll talk about, well, I'm a gold or I'm an orange, and talk about personality types and how well you work with others and where your interests lie. We were able to get True Colors back again for a few that have not been able to attend. It is limited to 20 participants. I think everyone has just been so busy, or perhaps by saying that we kind of scared you off. I have a sign-up sheet, and I'll be very honest with you. We have 16 openings, and I would say that you did a good job of limiting. The reason it's limited is we did have to purchase workbooks. Used to, Mitzi would come in and it was who all wanted to attend, and she'd just start digging the books out of her box, and that would be it. This time we did have to pay in advance. We had to order some books, and so we ordered 20 books. So I would say that catch me after this session. I have the official list, and then from then on, if at the last minute you think, well, I really would like to attend, we'll say the list is official. If there's still up to 20 positions left, then whoever appears at the door, you're welcome to attend. That's the purpose for that one. Another piece of information, we had scheduled Fairview Audiovisual out of Tulsa to be here from 1 to 3:30 this afternoon and present a lot of the new equipment that's out there, and some of those that you've seen at different workshops or that we've kind of wondered about, well, how would it work with different pieces? Unfortunately, they had a conflict, and one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing, and the equipment went to Dallas. And the presenter said, you know, we really can't come without the equipment that you want to see. So that will be rescheduled at a later time. One piece of information on a room change. I know quite a few of you are interested in attending Mary Trammell's presentation on persuasion tomorrow. That's Thursday at 10:30, the number 3 session. Well, the 10:30 start time has been moved to 1 p.m. So on Thursday, Mary Trammell's presentation on persuasion will be at 1 p.m. that same location. Another piece of information, the Fundamentals of DOS course on Thursday at 1 o'clock. I think we said limited space, limited to about 20 because of the number of computers. But that is just on a first come, first serve. So if you were really interested in attending that one, you might want to slip out of the Fiesta a little bit earlier than some of your peers and get over there. Another piece of information, we will be doing an evaluation of this in-service. It's a little bit different kind of in-service than we've done in the past. We plan to have a form that will look like this, have a little blue ticket stapled to it. I think we've decided that we'll probably make these available today at lunch. As you leave the Faculty Staff Association lunch, we're going to have them on a table. We were trying to decide what's the best way. We could distribute them now, kind of need them back Thursday at lunch or Thursday afternoon. There is a purpose for this ticket, so keep attending and keep listening, and we'll tell you more details later on why the ticket and what's the advantage. When we were planning in-service, I was talking to several people around campus, and I said, what would you like to see in in-service? And they said, you know what I'd like to see? I'd like to hear a motivational speaker. I'd like someone to get us off onto a good start. You know, we're getting ready to start the fall semester, and so in working with different ones in our committee, we worked with Bill Watson, and Bill said, I know just the individual. His name is Fred Friend. Mr. Friend is currently a senior consultant with the Covey Leadership Center of Oklahoma, providing training and consulting services based on, it's a book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and also Principle-Centered Leadership. He has 19 years experience as an industrial engineer, consultant, and trainer. His background includes technical and managerial training and consulting assignments with special emphasis in total quality management, leadership, and team building. His training, consulting, and speaking engagements have been from small entrepreneurial companies to Fortune 100 companies. Fred has a BS degree from Oklahoma State University, a Master in Engineering Administration degree from the George Washington University in Washington, D.C. He's a member of the Tulsa chapters of the American Society for Training and Development and the American Society for Quality Control. The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People are the elements of what Dr. Stephen Covey, the book's author, calls a maturity continuum. The speaker will explain how the 7 habits are interrelated to building blocks in a process that takes individuals from a state of dependence to independence to interdependence in their personal and interpersonal lives. An overview of the first 2 habits, be proactive and begin with the end in mind, will be presented today. I welcome Mr. Fred Friend.
Thank you. I thought it would probably be real easy to get here this morning. I have been in Okmulgee since 8:05 trying to find this place. Because I came in from the north that said, use State Highway 56. And I said, no problem, there's a sign. So I went zooming around to the west. And after 2 stops and 2 Citgos, I finally got here. I'm going to use some overhead, so I will probably move away from the microphone from time to time. And if I get over here or get over the flip chart and start talking and you can't hear me, please stop me by, raising your hand or speaking up or something to that effect. How many of you have read, how many of you are even aware of the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? What have we got for knowledge? Modest, short, okay. How many of you have read it? Okay, 1, 2, great. Well, it's fertile ground then. I've got a real challenge on my hands because usually this is a 2.5-day course, an intensive 2.5-day course. So the title of today's speech, the title of today's talk is going to be an introduction, the beginning of the 7 habits. And what we're going to do is to talk you through the first 2 habits out of the 7. Now, you're not going to get the type of in-depth experience that would give you some of the insights we really want you to carry away. My challenge is in about 30 or 40 minutes to make a difference. And that's a real challenge. But you all face that challenge every day in the classroom. I'm assuming that most of you are in an educator or a management of educator role. And you face that challenge every day in the classroom. What can I do in that 40 minutes that they might pay attention to me out of this class hour that will really have an effect? And that's going to be a challenge. And we'll see what we can do. There is a handout coming for you to keep notes on, and there's an exercise or 2 that we're going to work today. In terms of being a motivational speaker, I am not a high-energy type of speaker. I'm not a real positive mental attitude type of person, and this is not positive mental attitude type of material. It can be a change process for you. It can start you on a development process or a growth process. Nothing super magic is going to happen in the next 40 minutes, but it might give you, hopefully you get some insights and say, I could make some changes in this area, and I choose to make changes in this area, and these are 1 or 2 things that I'm going to do to get started. We're going to take that famous first step on a trip of 1,000 miles. Let me go to my overheads real quick. The beginning of the 7 habits of highly effective people. Dr. Covey's book has a secondary title called Restoring the Character Ethic. And when I tell you about the research that he did while he was writing this book, you'll find out more about what we mean there. Looking at the words in the title, habits, the 7 habits of highly effective people. What is a habit? Somebody tell me what a habit is. I know it's early in the morning, but at least somebody usually says, something a nun wears? No? A learned behavior that we repeat. It becomes a way for us to behave. So that's what a habit is. Are habits hard to change? They can be very difficult to change. We're going to talk about why habits are hard to change, what's the source of our habits, and if we want to change our habits, we have to change that source. We're going to use a word that you've heard a lot in the last year or two called paradigms. Everybody heard of a paradigm? You know what a paradigm is, don't you? It's a 20-cent word. I used to have 2 dimes to hold up at that point. There we go. A paradigm. What we repeatedly do, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is a habit. Excellence is a frame of mind, an attitude. It becomes a habit. There was a study that, part of what Stephen Covey researched, there was a study done that said, why are certain people successful and other people not as successful? And they found out that people that were really successful didn't like doing the things that they needed to do to be successful any more than the people that didn't do those things and were not successful. But those people that would force themselves to do the things that were needed did so because they had a mission or a vision or a purpose. They had some end in mind that says, I'm going to do these things so I will succeed. They had a drive. They had a purpose. And they were able to get themselves, motivate themselves to do those things that the other people didn't do. They didn't like it anymore. I meant there are some things that are easier for some people than others. It's not easy for me to get up and get around in the morning. Knowing that, one of the things that I personally do to try to put some discipline in my life and try to keep myself oriented or goal-oriented, once a week I get up and go watch the sun come up. That is a major accomplishment for me. Now sometimes, you know, I'm sitting there with one eye and a cup of coffee, but it seems like it's a silly little thing, but I do that once a week. I set a goal. Once every week, I'm going to be up and out there and watch the sun come up in the east. That's a silly little thing, but it's something that I do to overcome this reluctance that I've got to get up and get around in the morning. Now on Saturday, I sleep in tonight. That's the reward I give myself. But excellence is not an act, it's a habit. Okay, we want to be highly effective people. How many in here would just settle just to be lowly effective? Okay. Well, I said I'm going to have at least a little bit of work to do. How many would settle for being moderately effective? Oh, there's one back there that's riding a Shetland. So the rest of you did want to be highly effective at what you do in your profession, in your personal life. You want to be highly effective. What's your definition of effectiveness? Somebody give me a definition of effectiveness.
That which gets the job done.
That which gets the job done. Almost every time we ask for a definition, there is some sense of accomplishment. You get accomplished what it is that you want to get accomplished. There's another part implied in what I just said. What else is that? Somebody said goals. Did I hear this? Yeah, the thing about goals is you know what you want to get accomplished, and you're able to get that accomplished. If you're able to know what you want to get done and get it done, you say that you're effective. Sometimes we get definitions that says, do it at the least cost, do it in the least time. What are they really talking about there? Not effectiveness necessarily, but some other E word. Efficiency. Yeah. Efficiency and effectiveness are not quite the same thing. I like the definition that we've developed here. It's knowing what we want to get done and being able to accomplish it. We get a sense of control about our lives. We get a sense of growth and development in our professional lives or our personal relationships. Now, what I need to do is get kind of a sense of what I would call group dynamics. I'm going to give you a small test. You can pay attention to this. You might want to use it in the classroom. This is a large group. I don't know exactly how this will turn out. But you take a group of about 20 or 30 people, and you can almost predict the distribution on this test. It's kind of like what's the ink blots, the Rorschach test. I'm going to give you some symbols. I want you to look at the symbols and say, I feel like I am a, and pick a symbol that you feel represents you. Then I just want a show of hands. We're not keeping any records, don't worry about it. I want a show of hands so that I see what the distribution is between these three symbols. And then by the type of symbol that you pick, I can see whether there's a certain dynamic in the class or not. And we'll see. That kind of tells me, hello. Does this thing need to I'll tell you, while they're working on that, let me tell you the background, the research that was done on the book. Stephen Covey has his MBA from Harvard University and his PhD from Brigham Young University. In 1976, he was doing some research. Again, he was interested in not just the success literature that was out there, but the trends in the success literature. In 1976, it was the 200th anniversary of the founding of the United States, so he thought he would go back to 1776 and look at the writings of those days that were used to kind of guide people, what he would call the success literature, and compare that over a period of time. So he went back to the writings of Benjamin Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, up through the period of time where Daniel Webster and Abraham Lincoln, and on up to modern day times. What he found was that the first 150 years out of that 200 years that he looked at the literature, did a literature study, he found that they basically talked about things that he said referred to character: integrity, trustworthiness, industrialness, honesty, fidelity, loyalty. Those were the things that people wrote about, what he called character issues. In the late 30s and early 40s, there was kind of a change to the theme. And he said he typified the last 50 years of that writing as being more related to what he called personality issues. How to dress for success, how to win friends and influence people, which if you read the book is not necessarily a bad book, but the book can be misused. Even the title itself has just, how to win friends and influence people is a very good thing to know. It's a very powerful ability to have. But there is kind of in it, kind of a sense, at least the way it was interpreted by the general public, is this is what I have to do to get something from other people. And this was the change that he noticed, that in the writing, the later writings in the last 50 years, the kind of the focus was on doing the surface things, the personality things, having positive mental attitude, really pumping yourself up, getting out there and making your quota, and things like that. And he said that he calls the personality ethic. So one of the things he wanted to do was to kind of put together what he felt like were some of the core principles and core ideas in that first 150 years of writing, and kind of reintroduce that again. In other words, restoring the character ethic was one of the things that he wanted to achieve. There are a lot of skills and a lot of techniques and methods that are important for people to know if they're going to be successful. And we don't knock that. Dress for success makes sense. If you're going for an important job interview, you need to dress a certain way to make a good, favorable first impression. But if you're relying strictly on those types of techniques, over the long term, over a period of a career, or over the course of an employment with somebody, you're not going to be all that successful unless there is a good underlying character ethic. And that was one of the things that he covers in his book. The 200-year study, as a result of that, he developed the work that led to the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Okay, let's go back to this. There are 3 symbols here. If everybody would please just study these for a moment, kind of relax, look at it, and just, I relate to a certain symbol, and that's the one I'll vote for. And all I want to see is the distribution. Does everybody pick the one they want to vote for? Some people say, well, I feel like I relate to the square, the circle, the triangle. How many people pick the square to represent themselves? Six. This is a technical education group, isn't it? Okay, I get surprises. How many pick the circle to represent themselves? triangle to represent themselves. Okay. That is extremely unusual, at least certainly not what I would have expected for this group. To make a generalization, people that picked the box, square, have a technical orientation. They're engineers, they're scientists, an accountant or a financial person will pick that type of thing because they're very technical or procedural oriented. People that pick the circle are very people-oriented. You're teachers. Maybe that's the key. You're more teachers than you are technical. Yes, school teachers, clergymen, counselors, salesmen. Typically, a group of salesmen would be very high in this. What about the people who pick the triangles? Well, we found that those people are preoccupied by thoughts of sex and booze. What this tells me is that the attention span today is probably not going to be that high. Okay. Keep an eye on your neighbor. If they start to just kind of drift off into la la land, you know what they're up to. We said that habits are hard to break, and I alluded to the source of our habits, and I used that word that you hear a lot of, and nobody's really entirely sure just exactly what it means, which is why you hear a lot of it. It fits a lot of occasions. Paradigm. If you look it up in the dictionary, it's a model or a perspective. It's used a lot in scientific work. It's used a lot in behavioral work. But basically, it's our perception of the world, the way we see things, and the way we are. The thing about a paradigm is it originates from here. And it is limited to what I see and what I know. But this is the only thing I have to act on. So this is what controls the way that I act, my paradigm of myself and the world, and how I relate to the world. If we're going to change our behavior, we can try to do things like, well, you can get a time organizer. As a matter of fact, we have a time organizer that we include in our training. But we found that if you just have an organizer and say, okay, I promised myself that 3 or 4 days a week, I'm going to go out and run, do some jogging, I'm going to diet, I'm going to do certain things, spend more time with the kids. And you try to make that a habit just because you say, this is something I ought to do, let's make it a habit. What happens to the habit after a period of time? The intensity of it would be, boy, you're really enthusiastic, and you're doing good. You're not missing a day. You're getting out there 4 times a week and jogging. In the last 2 weeks, I've spent more time with the kids than I did in the previous month. But then the next month, well, there was 1 week when it was kind of raining, so I didn't get out twice that week. Then there was another week when I had a lot of things to get ready to do. Classes were getting ready to start, and I only got out twice that week. And since I've been so busy, I haven't spent that much more time with the kids. What happens to our good intentions? over a period of time. They fade out because we haven't really changed any aspect of our paradigm or our core. So we kind of want to do these things, but we don't really have the motivation to do it because we haven't changed our value system or our paradigm. What is the problem with a paradigm? Again, my paradigm is my view of the world like this. What's one of the inherent problems with me operating out of this paradigm?
Perhaps will not see it like it really is.
Right. First of all, my paradigm could be kind of wrong. For example, another illustration we use is a paradigm is like a pair of glasses that you see the world through. Can I borrow your glasses? Okay. And I know you're taking notes, but I need your help. I would like you to see the world as, we don't have name tags, as Whit. I would like you to see the world as Whit sees the world. He's on face. How does that work? You can't see. This paradigm doesn't work for you, does it? Okay. The paradigm is unique to the person, the experiences that they've had, and the knowledge that they've had, and sometimes it's not 100% true. I can guarantee you one thing, it's almost never, I don't say absolutes, never say never, but it's almost never complete, is it? Because what we know, what we've experienced, is not the sum of the world that's out there. So that's one of the most important things you can remember. Your perspective on the world might be pretty accurate, but it is always, almost always incomplete. Now we teach this later in one of the habits, seek first to understand and be understood. Because one of the most important things you can do in interpersonal relations, and if you want to be highly effective, no man is an island, no woman is an island. You're going to have to deal with other people. To be effective, you're going to have to work with them, and one of the most important things that you can remember in dealing with other people is my paradigm or my perspective is incomplete. And I've got a couple of stories to share with you that will help bring that out a little bit better. So if we want to develop new habits, we have to shift our paradigm. Who's heard of paradigm shifts? Another buzzword that's going to. Basically, that's just some kind of a breakthrough. We have to change our perspective, change our model of the world, so we have to shift our paradigm. If I want to really and truly lose a little weight and go out and jog, what's going to cause me to do that? If I'm going to develop a new habit, there has to be something in my core, some reason that I want to do that. And if my perspective of myself and the world doesn't really change a little bit, then that habit is going to die out for me. It's not going to become a true habit. So I've got to shift my paradigm a little bit. How do we shift our paradigms? It sounds great, but how do you do it? Remember, what's one of the limiting factors to a paradigm? Perception. I know that my paradigm is incomplete. And if I just start from that point, then what's one of the things I want to do? I want to be open to other people's input. As a matter of fact, if I really want to improve and become more effective and develop as a person, I actually seek other people's input. I don't believe that my way is the best way and the only way exclusively. So if you want to shift your paradigm, you look for other people's inputs. You even look for people that have a different opinion than yours, because you can learn a lot by working with people who have different opinions than yours. You can find out why they have those opinions, and it might shift your paradigm. You might shift their paradigm a little bit, but your perspective of the world is going to change. If I want to go out and jog 4 times a week, if I want to lose 15 pounds or whatever it is, there's going to have to be some kind of an event. If I want to be, how would you measure the effectiveness in the classroom? by the testing standards of your students. If I want the testing standard of my students to go up 10, 15, 20%, what can I do? What can happen? What kind of an event can take place to cause me to make that change and make that shift and really be motivated to do the things that I have to do to get that to come about? Let's use an easy one. How many of you here are over 40? You don't have to hold up your hands. A good number. Let's talk about health, fitness, metabolism, waistline, weight control, jogging. How many of you had some kind of a paradigm shift as you got into the 40s? How many of you suddenly discovered that diet was something other than a four-letter word? Up to the time when I was 41, 42 in there, I could eat anything I wanted, as much as I wanted. I was skinny. I was born skinny, and I'd stayed skinny almost all my life. I was also very active. As long as I stayed active, even in the late 30s, the very first, as I turned 40, as long as I stayed active, no problem. But my metabolism changed. And one day I had a paradigm shift. My daughter went by and said, "Hey, Dad, get a little chubby, huh? Pinch and eat, you know." What? No, not me. No, not somebody else. So I tried to deny it. Then I went into the closet, closed the door. Rats. When did that happen? Over the last 2 years. I had a paradigm shift. I said, "Is this the way I want to go?" And I said, "No, it isn't. I really don't. I need to lose, I'm still lucky. I just need to lose a couple of pounds right now. A couple, more like 10. But just a couple, you know. I'm still in denial. Need to lose a couple of pounds. But my paradigm shift was, I didn't want to be like my dad. My dad's 22 years older than I am. And I saw him, you know, kind of go into the 50s, 60s. I said, I guess I don't really want to be like that. And right now, it probably wouldn't be hard for me to do something about it. So I started a jogging program, and for the first time in my life, I had to diet, and that was no fun at all. I had to watch what I ate. I couldn't eat everything I wanted to, couldn't drink everything I wanted to. But I had a slight paradigm shift when I realized that my physical fitness and my physical image was not what I wanted. That gave me the motivation to diet. That gave me the motivation to stay on a jogging program. And every so often I backslide, and I have to revisit that and kind of shift. Also, you hear a lot about health today. How many people in here know that smoking is definitely bad for the human system, the human body system? I mean, we all know that. Now, just don't put your hands up. How many of you in here still smoke? You know, I notice fewer and fewer people doing that. My father does that. And I said, "Dad, you know it's bad for me?" "Yeah." "You know you need to lose some weight?" "Yeah." "You know you need to get more exercise?" "Yeah." "Fred, you know it's time for you to go home?" "Yeah." Okay. Just a little exercise here on perspectives. I'm going to show you a picture and kind of get you stirred up in here a little bit. When I show this picture to you, when you see the face of an American Indian, would you please stand up as soon as you recognize it? Okay? If you see the face of an American Indian, please stand up. Everybody got it? If you see the face of an American Indian, stand up. Now, if you also see in there an Alaskan Eskimo, please sit down. If you see the Eskimo, sit down. Oh, yeah. After another few seconds, if you don't see it, ask the people that are sitting down, because remember, one source of paradigm shift is to get the input of other people and ask their opinion. Ask them, they can tell you, they can point. See the Eskimo? See the Indian? What might have gotten in the way of seeing that Eskimo? Limited knowledge. Well, I told you there was an Eskimo in there. What else did you need? You were looking at that picture from a perspective that I set up for you. What was the first thing I asked you to look for? The face of an American Indian. How many of you were looking for the face of an Eskimo? Is anybody looking for the face of an Eskimo? See, from that perspective, from that pre-existing paradigm, you were looking for the face of an Eskimo, and you couldn't see the Eskimo for the Indian, right? Everybody's seen the one with the old lady and the young lady, so we've come up with a couple of new ones. Now, I would like to try to effect a paradigm shift right here this morning. And it's something you might also think about in your classrooms. Everybody, you not only act out of paradigms, but you listen out of paradigms. Right now, you're listening to me from a certain perspective. And I would like to change that perspective, try to help this be more effective. I want to ask you to do two things. One, as we go through this, please keep asking yourself the question and look for the answer. How can this help me be a more effective person? What he's talking about right now, how can I use it? How can I personally use this to be more effective? Okay? If you will take that perspective as you listen to me, that will open you up to a paradigm shift. As a matter of fact, if you take that perspective, it starts to shift your paradigm. Before, you were just sitting there listening to me, just seeing what I had to say. Now, I want you to try to get involved and active and become more than just a recipient of information. Actually start to consider yourself a change agent to make yourself more effective. The second thing I want you to do is to listen to this material and try to understand it so that this evening you can explain at least the major points of it to someone else. Now, this is an interesting concept. We use it, and a lot of other people use it. It's called three-person teaching. When I say, I'm going to explain something to you, and when I'm done, I want you to go to this group over here that has not heard me, and I want you to explain it to them. What does that do to your perception, to your role, to your paradigm? Right. Right. It motivates you to listen a lot closer because your perspective just changed. You're not just a recipient, you're going to be a teacher. Boy, I really need to understand this if I'm going to explain it to someone else. Now, if you'll use this three-person teaching concept, you're going to learn twice. You're going to learn as I teach it to you. Actually, you're going to learn 3 times. You're going to learn as you prepare to teach it to them, and you're going to learn again as you teach it to them. Three-person teaching you can actually use in the classroom, in your coursework. But they've even done studies of this. They've divided classes in half. They would teach only one half of the class, and then that class would go teach the other half of the class. When they did that, Dr. Covey participated in that study, and when they did that, they found that the people that were taught that way outscored people that were taught the traditional way by about 30–35% on the final achievement test at the end. The people that were the experimental subjects were undergraduate degree freshmen doing graduate degree marketing work. The people that did it the standard way were graduate degree students taking the standard marketing course. Under-degree freshmen outscored graduate degree students using this concept. Why? They listened. They listened intently. And the score that they got depended upon the overall score of the whole group, too. I forgot that part. In other words, they got a group score. So I have to help him understand so that we both learn, so that we both prosper. And the people over here, they understood or they didn't understand. But trying to effect a paradigm shift, think about this material. How can it help me? And I need to understand it well enough to explain it to someone else. Three-person teaching is a powerful concept. What are 7 habits of highly effective people? 7 habits. You've got a handout now, I think. You've got this one. 7 habits is just an easy way of organizing it. We develop it into a model we call the maturity continuum. Maturity continuum. See, it's not listed on here. Okay. This model, if you have a copy of it in your handout, is the maturity continuum. People that are not highly effective are usually at a state of dependence. They depend upon somebody else. They're dependent in that they do not take responsibility for their lives. They don't take responsibility, or they have not gone through any kind of process to identify what it is they want to accomplish, and they don't take responsibility for accomplishing it. They are dependent, and they find fault and blame. They are reactive. It's not my fault. You know, what can you do in a system like this? The governor cut our budget again. You know, how can we be effective in a system like that? The first 3 habits are the habits of what we call private victory. And those habits are be proactive. And we're going to talk about this one briefly. And begin with the end in mind. We'll talk about that. Be proactive means take responsibility. Don't be reactive. Don't find fault and find blame. But instead, find the things that you can do and do something about it. We talk about our circle of influence. We have the ability to take responsibility, and we have responsibility. 2 words. Responsibility. Decide what it is you want to accomplish. Begin with the end in mind. In our lives, this means that we really need to write something like a mission statement for our lives. What is it I want to accomplish in my professional life? What I want to accomplish in my private life? Begin with the end in mind. Take responsibility for your own life, whether that is your professional or private life. Begin with the end in mind, and then that gives us a basis for making priorities and making choices. So these first 3 habits together move us from a state of dependence to a state of independence. Okay? Once we reach this state of independence, we are comfortable and confident in ourselves. We know what we want to accomplish. We know where we're going. We have a basis for setting priorities. Now I can be effective working with other people. So the next movement is to the state of interdependence, and to work effectively with other people, I have to think win-win, which is an attitude. I need to work with these people in such a way that we both get what we want. I need to seek first to understand before I try to explain to them what I want. A powerful concept is you and I need to agree. We've got a little bit of a difference of opinion, but it's in our mutual interest to cooperate on this project or whatever it is. So let's agree to communicate until we understand each other and we understand how both of us can win out of this. I'll tell you what, you go first. That's where the power comes in. You go first. When we're in a situation like that, what's the natural tendency for us? Let me tell you what I think we ought to do. A powerful concept is, let me understand your position so that I know what it is you want and why you want it, what's your motive behind your needs, and then I'll explain my position. But if you'll just give those people the freedom to talk first, they're going to open up to you and you're going to be able to develop this win-win relationship. People working together are much more productive than people working individually. None of us are as smart as all of us. It's an important motto to remember. And that takes us to a state of interdependence where we are effective with other people in our working relationships. If you would, part of your handout. Real quick, just jot down some notes or an idea. Name one thing that would make a significant positive impact in your professional or your personal life if you could just be more effective at that one thing. If you would, just jot down that idea in that first part. Don't worry about the rest of it yet. Have you captured the idea? Okay, then the next thing, if you would, just jot down a couple of notes about what are the barriers that stand in the way of you being more effective in that area. Just jot down 2 or 3 things there. Okay. Proactivity. First habit is be proactive. Proactivity means taking responsibility and recognizing that you are response-able. You're in a certain situation, you can develop a habit of stop, think, choose. Now there are certain emotional situations, especially in family life. I still run into this from time to time with one of my children, and I forget to stop, think, choose. So what I do is I bark and I bite, and I go, oh, that was an overreaction. She didn't deserve that. So I'm still working on that part. I find in my parent role that's the hardest one to master. But in almost all situations, if we can practice the habit of stop, think, choose, and say, well, I'm responsible, and I will respond in a certain way, and I will feel better about that by doing that. Proactive means choosing your response. Stop, think, choose. Versus reactive, which means your choice is dictated by emotions. Now we're talking about a particular problem area. First of all, I assume because you picked this problem that it is within your circle of concern. That means it's something that you have already decided is an issue or a topic or an idea that I should do something about. But you know, the first question you should ask yourself is this particular topic within my circle of concern? If there's something going on in Capitol Hill in Oklahoma City, is it within my circle of concern? And if it is, then the next one is there anything I can do about it? You may decide, okay, that bugs me, that really bugs me, but it's not my circle of concern, so I'm going to move it outside, and I'm not going to spend time and energy or focus worrying about this. And you know, you can unload a lot of stress in your life just by deciding that that's outside my circle of concern. I'm going to control what I'm concerned about. The second concept is circle of influence. If it's within my circle of concern, what can I do about it? Reactive people just complain and bellyache. Proactive people say, okay, take that problem that you just jotted down and those barriers. Now those barriers are just kind of an excuse really for not doing anything. If you would, come down here and look at that problem and say, what are 2 or 3 things that I could personally do about that, that's within my circle of influence, something that I control. Maybe it's writing a letter. Maybe it's calling somebody up and having a conversation to start to straighten out a communications. Maybe it's a new habit or a skill or a task. But if you would, list 2 or 3 things that you could do today or tomorrow or this week. Action items that you could do. If you want to lose 15 pounds, if you want to quit smoking, come up with 2 or 3 specific action items that you could do on this problem area. Jot it down real quick. You know, we can judge whether we have a tendency to be proactive or reactive by listening to the language we use, people around us, the language we use. Look at this language. I would have been on time, but I figured the other group members would be late anyway. If my boss would allow me more freedom, I could get organized. He makes me so mad when he does that. Sorry, I forgot, but you know how I am about remembering dates and what's left. It's not my fault I'm late. You know how tough it is to find a parking place downtown? What's a common theme that runs through all of the language? It's not my fault. I'm passing the buck. If my boss would give me more freedom, I could get better organized. I could get organized. You're blaming it on your boss. Aren't there 1 or 2 or 3 things that you could go ahead and do within your own circle of influence? If you will do the things that you control and work within your circle of influence will grow. Stop and think about what can I do to make this situation better for me. He makes me so mad when he does that. Who makes you mad? Who makes you mad? Yeah. He reacted, he did something, and I reacted to it. But I can stop and think and choose and not act. Listen to the language that we all use. You will find that a great majority of it is just naturally reactive language. Could we rewrite these statements to make them proactive? You know, when you act that way, it's difficult for me not to get mad in response. But I know that I can do that. But I just want you to know that I disapprove of you acting that way. Okay, rather than getting mad. Okay, real quick. Back to our problem. What did I do? Okay. At the bottom of, there it is. At the bottom of that, there are 3 application suggestions. I'd like to get you to start looking at this from a different perspective. There are 3 things I'd like to ask you to do. 1, all day today, listen to the language that you use and the other people around you, the language they use. See how much reactive language you can spot, like if only, or I can't, or I have to, or they. Anytime you hear somebody talking about they being a problem, that's reactive language. Secondly, identify an experience where, according to your past behavior, if it were to come up again, you would probably act reactively. Probably, most people come up with some kind of a family situation. You know, the last time I snapped at one of my girls or something like that. Think through that situation and say, okay, this is what happened the last time that I had a problem with a student or a coworker or something like that. How could I have handled it differently? And make a mental choice today as to how you would deal with that situation if it came up again. So that's the second thing for application. How could you respond non-reactively or proactively if that were to occur? That way you'll kind of have a mental model in the back of your mind if it comes up again. The second thing, or the third thing, is to identify another area, at least one more area in your life where you would like to be effective, and use that circle of influence test. I would like to be more effective at this. It would really be a lot of benefit to me. What are the first 2 or 3 steps that I could take to start down this path of 1,000 miles? So 3 applications that you can work on today. Now real quick, because we're out of time, but you have another handout. Let me explain this to you because this is probably best done in private anyway. This is a workshop exercise that we use. It's your 85th birthday. Everybody's turned to this. They are having a tribute, a surprise birthday party for you, and they've invited some guest speakers. What you do is, what are the most important roles that you play in life? Most of us are parents. As professionals, we may be teachers. We work with other people in this profession, so we're a co-worker. All right? Fill in the roles that you want to organize or divide your life into. I'm a parent, I'm a husband, I'm a trainer, by necessity I'm a marketing and business development type person, so I've identified roles in my life that I want to be effective in. Now, for example, parent. Pick one of your children, or maybe it's a sibling or something like that, but pick one specific person that's going to show up at your 85th birthday and talk about your relationship. And then here's the good part. You get to write the speech that they're going to give. I'm a parent, and I've selected Chrissy to represent that role. And she's going to show up at my 85th birthday, and here's what she's going to say about me. This is what I want Chrissy to say on my 85th birthday. Dad always, etc., etc., etc. Work through this exercise. As a teacher, you have a student, and Joe is going to say, I mean, is this great? You get to write the tribute that they're going to make. Define the role, pick a representative, and write out the statement that you want that person to say about you on your 85th birthday. Can you see where we're going with this? Why do you want to do that? Why do you want to write the statement? When you write that statement, what are you doing? You're setting a life goal. What do I want my children to say about me on my 85th birthday? And that is a driving force that I can use to kind of steer my relationship with my children. I said, you know, when I first did this, I said, boy, what I'm really worried about is what they might truly say. I had a paradigm shift, and I picked Chrissy because she's my youngest, she's the noisiest, she's almost hyperactive, and she just drives me crazy, okay? And out of the relationship between the three of us, and she's also the most hard-headed, this is the one that's the rockiest. And I said, boy, I'm scared of what she might say. Dad was always snapping at me for being too loud. He never had time for me. He always had time for my 2 older sisters, you know, things like that. So I said, boy, unfortunately, I get to write the statement. So I wrote the statement. You know, Dad sometimes lost his temper, but he always apologized. He made a time to spend time with me, just like he did my older sisters and things like that. What do you suppose I do with that? That helps govern the relationship with Chrissy. Your professional roles, how do you want to be viewed as a teacher? How do you want to be viewed as a manager? Go through this exercise, and this is the payout. This is what you want to accomplish in your life. And this is what causes the paradigm shift to say, I'm going to have a different relationship with my children. I'm going to have a different relationship in the classroom with my coworkers, with my spouse. On the back side of that, one more exercise. And this is just, again, to help you kind of identify what it is you want to accomplish, because the first part of being effective is to identify what you want to accomplish in the classroom, as a manager, career development, whatever. What are the things that you want to do? What are the milestones you want to achieve? What's the purpose of your life? My mission in life, the things that I would like to accomplish. Start to write that out. And then, what are the changes I need to make? This is where the paradigm shift can come in. This is what will change your core so the habits become automatic. I have certain habits with Chrissy Friend now that 2 years ago I didn't have. Biting my tongue is one of those habits. But I have developed that habit. I do not snap at her anywhere near like what I used to do. The changes that I want to make, these are the habits that you're going to develop. Okay, I've got a closing story real quick. Stephen Covey uses this story. Bridge to the captain, Captain I. Lookout reports a light on the starboard bow. Okay, send them a message telling them to change their course 20 degrees starboard. Sir, we got a reply back saying that they'd like for us to change our course 20 degrees starboard. I'll be right up. Send the message again, tell them that we recommend they change their course 20 degrees starboard. Message comes back, I recommend you change your course 20 degrees starboard. Give me that radio. This is Captain Horatio Hornblower the 17th. Who am I speaking to? This is Chief Petty Officer Smith. Can I help you, sir? Yes. I'm ordering you to change your course 20 degrees starboard. Sorry, sir, I can't do that. You need to change your course 20 degrees starboard. He says, listen, Petty Officer, I'm the captain of the USS Missouri. Now change your course 20 degrees starboard immediately. He says, sir, I'm trying to tell you, I can't do that. I'm the Chief Petty Officer in charge of the Lighthouse Nantucket, and I recommend that you change your course immediately. Proactivity and beginning with the end in mind are just two of the habits that we teach out of the 7. I hope that you got a little bit of experience out of it. Again, if you'll stop and reflect now, how can what he's covered really help me? These exercises may help a little bit. And can I explain this to someone else at this point? And along that line, we're running over, so are there any questions? Any points? Everybody's ready for a coffee break, or everybody's ready to do something else because they've already had the coffee. No questions? Okay. Have a good day. Get out there. Be proactive. Listen to that reactive language and scold each other.
Thank you very much. Very good inspiration for us. About time for our beginning session. We've got 4 to choose from. And again, as I glanced down at my list, I realized the True Colors, the first session begins immediately. So again, I have 15 slots. You might come up and catch me with True Colors, and then it's over in the Business Communications building.